She's an award-winning writer, a hunting guide, archery and rifle instructor, keynote speaker, and all-around outdoors woman who encourages you to get outside, hunt, fish, shoot, and savor all that life has to offer. And now, here's your host, Mia Anstine.
Well, hey, hi, hello, you all. Welcome to the Mac Outdoors podcast. If it is your first time here, welcome to the show. I hope that you enjoy it and that you may subscribe and share with your friends. To my longtime subscribers, thank you for showing up and for your continued support. I truly do appreciate it. I also just wanted to tell you that I apologize for the delay in publishing of episodes. Life has been crazy here, and I'm not going to go into too much detail, but please keep me and my family in your prayers. We can always use that. I also wanted to say my guest today is a longtime friend that I met a long time ago at a bow hunting super show or I'm an expo somewhere. But anyways, bow hunting, and he talks about a analogy that I really liked, and it was about drawing a bow back and the struggle to pull back, but then the let off and then the release. And I feel like that's where I am in life right now. There's some things that are really difficult, and I'm hoping that it's leading up to that slingshot effect of let's just soar and fly, smooth sailing, hit our targets. Anyways, I know that I might be messing that analogy up slightly. You'll have to listen to the episode to hear his version of it, but it's something that I really enjoyed in our conversation. We did talk for quite a while. It was super fun chat, and I hope that you enjoyed as well. But today I have Reverend David March, and with David, we are discussing so many things, but primarily if you look back at a past episode, I had Orlando Chiles on the show, and he talked about how hunting saved his life. And today we're going to hear another story about how the outdoors and this connection to God and how people are just reformed, revived, saved, whatever words you want to use, how this can make such an impact on our lives. And so it's something that I hope you enjoy the story and the conversation. And when you're listening to it, I do hope that you can think about yourself and maybe struggles that you go through and how you can keep going, where you can find inspiration. I hope the show is inspiration for you. I also hope that my social media is inspiring for you because sometimes we get into just sharing the good stuff. And I will say that I generally do that. I'm guilty. I always share good stuff, or I try to share positivity and so forth. And that's partly because I feel like we get what we give. And if you share a lot of negativity, if you just dwell on the struggles in your life, that's all you're going to see. And you kind of get stuck in that rut. So I try not to get stuck there. I try to share the good stuff, look for the good stuff, look for the optimism. I always say that I would like to be a light to the world. I shed light on the world, even if it's only with a smile. And you can find that on one of my social media outlets if you go check them out. And if you're not subscribed over there on social medias, go do that, please. I appreciate it. It's a great way to stay in touch. If you know a story of somebody that you think would be a great guest on the show, please let me know. You can email. The email address is contact@miaanstine.com or direct message on social media. I check that myself. I don't have an assistant. It's just me. And I try to respond and reply to every message and contact that I get. Also, while we're looking at it, think about how you can be courageous and embrace gifts that you have been given in life, and maybe you can share greatness with somebody else because this is something that I know today's guest does, and I hope you will as well. I hope you enjoy today's episode.
This summer, whether at the range or in the field, WSI Sports Hypertech bamboo tanks, tees, and leggings will have you covered. Visit WSISports.com to support the show and use the affiliate code MACO10 for 10% off your purchase. All products are proudly made in the USA. WSI is bringing back pride in American-made clothing. Again, that code is MACO10 for 10% off your order at WSISports.com.
Hey guys, are you looking for a stylish concealed carry shirt? Check out Tarn Cap Gear. With print reducing patterns, concealed carry snaps, and minimal branding, Tarn Caps
cloak of invisibility is what you have been waiting for. Visit mia.limited/tarncap and use the code Anstine for 10% off your purchase. Again, that's mia.limited/tarncap and use code Anstine for 10% off your order.
I'm gonna start recording since we're talking so much.
Sorry.
No, you're fine.
So are we officially started yet?
We're officially recording, and I'll
Oh,
just
gotcha.
say, welcome to Mac Outdoors. I'm happy that you agreed to come on the show, and I look forward to visiting with you and learning from you today. For the listeners, we've kind of got caught up in reminiscing because it's been like over a decade that I
Over.
think that we've known each other, or that we had met. And gosh, there's so much that we could share and learn. And so we were just chatting, and I was like, I better start recording because some of this is going to be something that the audience is going to want to hear.
Yeah.
But David, for the audience, would you introduce yourself and let them know who you are and what you do?
Absolutely. My name is David March. I am a senior. My son is the second. We skipped junior and went straight to the second. I'm a pastor here in Fayetteville, North Carolina, via Youngstown, Ohio, via Columbus, Ohio. So we are transitioned here. We have transitioned here November 6th of 2021. I'm thinking that's right. November 6th, 2021 is when we transition here. So we've been here it'll be 3 years this November in Fayetteville, North Carolina. And I pastor a different type of church here in Fayetteville. It's not your typical building per se, but we have a tent ministry where we go where the people are. We take our church to where the people are, because if you've been around people that's been in church before and they no longer go to church, and you say, hey, would you like to go to church with us? And they say, well, if I go to church, it might catch on fire. I might burn up. Or they say, I've been hurt by the people at the church. I'm not going. Okay. Well, we're going to come to you then. We strictly believe in following Jesus's example. When he took his ministry to the street, that's what we're doing. We're taking our ministry to the street, just like Jesus did.
That's awesome. And you and I had met in the hunting realm. And so I know we'll visit a little bit about that. But for the listeners, if you follow me on social media, you know that I share a lot of verses of the day. And that all starts with my morning. That's how my morning begins. And Mr. March had shared something on social media. I don't recall today what it was, but it was something about our faith and the outdoors and hunting. And I really thought that it'd be great to have you as a guest so that we could kind of share that. And when we're
I remember the
looking,
scripture too. Sorry.
do you?
Yeah. I
Awesome.
was talking about Genesis 27:3, where he said, take you up your quiver and your bow and go get me some venison. And that scripture, I remember sharing a little bit about it in the post. Abraham was talking to his son, and he said, take up thy quiver and thy bow and go get me some venison. Because he was ready to eat. I believe it was Abraham. And he was getting ready to pass. That's what it was. He was getting ready to die. I believe it was Abraham. Now I'm thinking about it. I don't think it was Abraham. Pastors make mistakes too. So, but anyway, that was the scripture that I had referenced. And it was talking about how day to day we have to take up our weapons if we are to do what we are called to do for that day. We can never lay down our weapons. We have to pick up our Bible, pick up our briefcase, our notebook, our tablets, our Macs, our computers, our laptops, whatever it is that we use for the day. We have to take up our weapons and pursue that day with everything we have. We can't half step it. I believe I was talking about something like that along the lines.
Mhm.
I think.
Yeah, and that's a really common scripture that I see, at least hunters, I see them share that a lot as like a reason why we hunt. And there are so many verses that talk about why we would want meat, why we would pursue game and stuff like that. And it's something that I would like to connect more of the newer hunters, but also experienced hunters with that kind of reasoning, because a lot of what I do, I'm oftentimes defending hunting, and also defending Christianity as well, because that's something that here recently is severely under attack. And I think what it's done for me personally is it's pushed me further into the Bible and further into the word so
Mm.
that I understand it more. And that's where, like, when you have the confusion of, like, well, which one was it that said this to, like, was that, Jacob or somebody saying that to Esau?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I don't even know how a pastor can keep it all straight because there's so much in the
yeah.
Bible.
We
It's,
have to be on stage 24 hours a day. And I think
yeah.
this is just like a little side note. I think that's where people get more church hurt than anything, is that they put pastors on a pedestal and then they expect them to be perfect. So when they do slip up, and it was actually Esau, and that Jacob situation where they were being where he was getting ready to pass, and his brother came in and deceived him because his brother was out getting some venison. That's what it was. So you're right, dead on. But I think people put pastors on a pedestal, and when pastors mess up, the people get deceived and they get let down and they get brokenhearted. But then that's when they take their eyes off of God, which is where their eyes should be anyway. Pastors are just here to help lead and direct and encourage and edify and uplift and help direct in situations in life, you know.
Yeah, and I appreciate all the work that goes into being a pastor because I mean, I think a lot of people think it's just a Sunday thing, and I know there's so much work that goes into preparing. And I'm like putting you on the spot today. I didn't
It's
tell
all
you like
right.
what to prepare for, so
It's all
no
right.
verses memorized for today. As I said, I didn't even remember which verse we were talking about when I was like, "Can I visit with you?" So
It's
I'm
okay.
not trying to put you on the spot, but actually, we have three different churches that we kind of go to because we're an
Mhm.
hour from all three of them.
Wow.
But it's one of our favorite pastors is one that he's perfectly imperfect. And it's something that we love about him is that he'll just make a mistake and he rolls with it and keeps going. And I love that because it's like all of us we're just not perfect. Jesus is perfect, not us. So I'm sorry to put you on the spot with
No,
stuff
you're fine.
today. That
You're
wasn't
good.
my wasn't
You're
my
good.
goal.
You're good. You're good.
But when we're looking at, hunting and connecting with nature and the outdoors, before we get into that, could you tell us a little bit about, I mean, I'm telling you about my journey. I mean, I grew up in a Christian family, but the more I see this kind of craziness, I don't know a better word to call it, but craziness in our nation right now and probably in the world. I haven't traveled out of the country since the pandemic, but
Mhm.
as we're seeing that, it pushes me more toward God. And can you tell me about your journey to
Oh,
coming more into being a pastor and stuff like that?
absolutely. I'll give you the short version. I grew up in Youngstown, Ohio. We went to a Christian school where we had some things happen to me personally, abuse wise, but I'm not going to go into that today. Grew up in a home with two parents until they divorced. I think I was like 16 years old, and so I was pretty much left by myself. And what I mean by that is when my parents divorced, my mother took my younger brother and sister and moved to Enterprise, Alabama, while we were living in Ohio, a good 13-hour drive. For anybody who's wondering the distance, it's about a 13-hour drive from Youngstown, Ohio to Enterprise, Alabama. And when that happened, well, let me back up. She took my two younger siblings with her to Alabama, but I had two older siblings that had already moved out and moved back to Alabama. And I'm not too sure on how the conversation went because I hear stories from both sides, or I did at one time. My mom passed away in 2010. Um, but I heard things from both sides, so I'm not sure. I've always said before, and I'm a true believer that it's his side, her side, and then there's the truth. Um, God taught me that a long time ago. But growing up in the church, I grew up in the church. I gave my heart to the Lord when I was 11. But I seen a lot in the church and outside the church. And then when family started breaking up, I really didn't have anything to hold on to as far as church wise. So I left the church at the age of 18. I started drinking and clubbing and things like that. Joined the gang. and did a whole lot of sinning and a whole lot of dirty stuff on the outside of the church, and went back every once in a while. And I just kept feeling like I was judged. I was being judged. I was being judged every time I went to visit. And I know there's a lot of people that feel that way. Um, and so after a while, I'm like, I'm just not going to go back. So I didn't. So I hung out in the streets. And then as life went on, I left the church for 17 years. Was shot at and a whole lot of other stuff. Details are not really important right now, but I got into a lot of trouble. Did a lot of time in jail. And one day my dad contacted me once I had moved to Columbus, Ohio. And I had started dating my now present wife in the picture. And I think you met her one time before via phone or something like that. And my dad invited us to come to church one day. And that Sunday, we went, and it was all like lightning that day. I got up in the middle of the service. I interrupted service, just tears just flowing. I ran to the altar and I screamed out, "I'm tired of living like this." The pastor was kind of thrown back because I guess he never heard or had anything like that happen in service at any time of his ministry. Pastor Larry Jones in Columbus, Ohio, he prayed for me, and then he had my wife come down and grab my arms and say, where he's getting ready to go, he's going to need you to be there for him and hold your arms up. Fast forward a little bit, I started going through PTSD from living on the streets, being homeless, the gang life, and going through the abuse when I was in school, and different things like that with family members and other people. So going through that season in my life of PTSD, I would like to call it was one of my wilderness seasons where God was training me to be who I am today and helping me heal from all of that, so I can be able to speak about it openly now. And so I started going to see a therapist. And if anybody ever had doubts about going to go see a therapist, erase the doubts. It's well worth going to go see a therapist. It's worth it. And it's very necessary in some cases, to have that atmosphere where you're free to be able to share those things that have kept you bound up and hurt and, just discouraged and depressed for so long and dealing with anxiety and panic attacks. See a therapist. So that helped me a lot. And then after I saw my therapist for a while, I saw another therapist, and he told me, he said, you suffer from PTSD. I don't suggest you go back to work anytime soon. So I'm going to fill your papers out for permanent disability. And I was really kind of discouraged with that because everybody in my family always worked. So he made a joke. He said, why don't you find something that you like to do and go get paid for it? So I'm like, what in the world what do I like to do? And then it hit me. My grandfather used to take us hunting and fishing all the time. And that was my happy place. That was my peaceful place. So going through all of that and transitioning into ministry, I found that sitting on a bank, sitting in the woods up under a tree, was my alone time with God. And the more that I did it, the more I found that I was at peace with David and understanding who I truly am as a husband, as a father, as a provider, as a protector and the priest of our household. When that happened, I started becoming a better husband. I started becoming a better father. I started listening more than I was speaking, which opened up the door for me to be able to go out, and share my testimony to a homeless shelter where people were recovering addicts and so forth. And so when that happened, I'm thinking there might be something to this. Okay, God, what are you trying to tell me? What are you trying to tell me? He said, you've been called to be a minister. Oh, okay, cool. I'm going to go out and wait. Nope. That's not me. That's my daddy. And that's my brother. That's not me. Nope. I'm that street guy. I never saw myself in that position or living that type of life because of what I saw in the church. I said, I don't want no part of that. So I opened up the Bible and I start reading it. And the more I dove into the Bible, the more I said, okay, what I'm seeing here isn't lining up with this. This is what I really want. I don't want that. I want my life to be an example of Jesus changing my life and how he can do it for me. He can do it for anybody that's watching. He can do it for anybody that's watching. So he told me one day, I want you to start a show. This is in 2010. Well, start a show. Yeah, hunting show. And I'll be honest with you. Can I just be real transparent? I looked in the mirror. I was like, ain't no black people doing no hunting. Nobody's doing that. Nobody got no hunting show. Ain't nobody black doing that. But he said, you're going to stand out. You're going to be different. And I'm going to open up the door for you to be able to do that. And so people start sending me, I had some around here, little, remember, the little orange Bibles, the New Testament Bibles that you can find almost anywhere? People were sending me boxes of those. And so every time I went out to public land to hunt, I would have an opportunity to talk with somebody about God out there hunting and give them a Bible. And so I went a step further. I said, okay, let me get some children involved. So I started taking kids, and parents were trusting me. Here, take them, because God showed me one day. He said, look at what happened with you. Oh, I'm loving this. Yeah, I love it. He goes, so imagine what can happen if you started with a kid. If you take a kid hunting or fishing, you'll never have to go hunting or fishing for them in the street. And I kept thinking about that. I'm like, all right. So I started with my kids to see what was going to happen and see how that worked. And then it just blew up from there. And later on, the more I shared my testimony, the more I start feeling the call to pastor and to lead. And long story short, here I am today, pastor, still fishing, still hunting, and loving every bit of it. Loving every bit of it. Now, instead of hunting deer more often, and bear and squirrels and rabbits and stuff like that, stuff that I can put in the freezer, I'm now hunting demons that are hunting people, and hurt, not in a spiritual sense, because some people might get that and blow it out the water. But yeah, that's what I do. I look for people that's been struggling with depression, homelessness, anxiety, PTSD, been strung out on alcohol, drugs, and I go and I'll attack whatever it is and help them get past that, one person at a time.
Yeah, one person at a time. And I can't imagine how many you've reached already. And with that, God called you to that, and you had the TV show, right?
Yep.
And then do
Oh,
you
Lord.
still have the show?
Right now I just do it on YouTube. I just posted videos on YouTube every once in a while. As a matter of fact, it was the early part of this year. I finally got around to posting my daughter, though I think the one you met, Taylor, the hunter, her first buck that she got when we did an Illinois hunt, up in Illinois. And I think I just posted that video early part of this year. And then I posted a video of my dad's hunt. He was in Vietnam, so I posted a couple of those hunts. So I do a lot of it now just for YouTube, simply because there were some things that happened when we lived in Columbus, and I decided to take a step back. And I said, I can't put my family in that type of danger anymore. It's just not worth it. Not for me anyway. We've had death threats. People actually come see me out at the ATA show, the Deer and Turkey Expos, and literally just really went in with the racial stuff. I mean, like really, really deep. Even down to the fact where they followed my wife and out to the car one day as we were leaving the ATA show, and threatened our life. And I'm like, okay, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm done. So I walked away, and now we just post videos on YouTube.
Yeah, and that's something that I don't know if a lot of people realize how frightening that is. I mean, not just for your wife, but for you also, I'm sure, because
Mhm,
you're their provider and protector. Like we got to meet each other in person, and then we're friends via social media. I have
mhm.
a lot of really good friends that I've met from social media, but then I also have friends that are like they think they're my best friend, and I hope that I'm not offending anybody, but if you show up somewhere, and especially a lot of times I travel by myself because my
Mhm.
husband had to take care of our ranch, but when they show up out of nowhere and all of a sudden this person is your best friend, it honestly is a little unnerving when
Yeah,
you those boundaries are not there anymore.
yeah.
And I think people have gotten so comfortable on social media as keyboard warriors, they come in
Mhm.
person and their boundaries are a little different now. And
Absolutely.
some of them that are well-meaning, that have good intentions, you can kind of understand that. But when it's someone who is giving you death threats, that
Mhm.
is so frightening. And
Yeah.
I'll be honest, I mean, we've been friends over the years, but it's like I've had more people ask, like, why don't you have a TV show? Why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? And honestly, I'm a very private person. And the threats I've had just from social media to kill my daughter or kill my dogs or kill my horses. I'm just like, what I've got is good. And I don't need to put myself or my family out there because it's pretty scary. And I do a lot about self-defense. I do a lot of
Mhm.
firearms training and stuff like that, but I don't ever want to have to use them.
Right,
So
right.
I could totally understand you kind of backing off on that if you had some incidents that were um scary. I mean,
And I was
bottom
actually
line.
kinda surprised when I seen you did the cover of the magazine, I was like, "Whoa." It seemed like you were stepping out of your comfort zone. I'm like, "Whoa." But on the other side of that, I'm like, "Wow, she is opening up the door for so many females, not just in the industry, but around the world or, in the United States alone, just seeing, wow, here's a female doing big things. I can do that." I
Yeah.
was actually encouraged by it too.
Well, that's
I
awesome.
really
I'm glad.
was.
I'm glad because that was a little bit out of my comfort zone. And a lot of times that's what I am worried about is the attacks. I mean,
Mm,
just I'll be blunt about it, the attacks, because whether they're verbal or messages or stuff like that, it's never fun. And I've learned how to use the delete and block button very well, but in person is a little different. And I don't know if I've said it on the podcast very much, but with that Field and Stream cover, I was worried about the anti-gun people because they are
mhm.
primarily who's come after me. The anti-hunters a little bit, but the anti-gun people, and I had a rifle on that cover,
Yeah,
and I thought it was going to be the anti-gun people that came after me, but actually it was some of the I would say white male hunters came after me.
really?
And
Wow.
that I had no business being there. And it's like I didn't put myself there, honestly. I mean, I was interviewed for it, yes, but I didn't say, hey, I want to be on the cover of Field and Stream.
Wow.
But that was something that has been mind blowing to me, is like to be attacked by your own, and
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
like, no, I'm not Janet Waller or Christy Titus or Melissa Bachman, it's just Mia, that's all. But um, the whole article and the whole reason for being there was just an everyday person who's trying to make a difference in the world. And I do, and I thank God for that all the time,
Absolutely.
because without God, I wouldn't be doing any of the stuff that I do. And I do know, just like you, how you said you have made an impact on individuals.
Mhm.
I meet individuals all the time that it just like makes my heart swell at when I see the difference that I made in their lives. And so
Absolutely.
I'm very blessed in that way, that I can kind of touch people and help them on their journey for where they're going.
Absolutely. And I can agree with you on that. You said something that sparked something there that got touched me a little bit. When I started the TV show, and we were being represented by Deer Space. I don't know if you are familiar with Deer Space.
Yeah, race to be in deer space. Yeah.
We were on the cover of one of their magazines, my kids and I. And then my kids, our kids, made it in one of their magazines, in one of their brochures and on their calendar. Um, And I was really happy about it. I was like, yeah, you know, my kids are making an impact as young people. You know, they're showing that people from the not so good side of the tracks, the minorities, they can have a part of this industry too. They can go out and have fun and enjoy the outdoors just as much as anybody else. But when I started hearing comments from family, it really, really hurt. It really, really hurt. I actually stopped speaking to one of my sisters for years because she came at me about it. So yeah, that hit pretty hard too. And when you said that, I'm thinking, I get it. I was there. Yeah, one of my own flesh and blood came at me. You would think that they would be supportive because it's something different that doesn't fit the mold that what, you know, the stereotypical mode of what most inner city kids are about. And I broke that. I tried my hardest to break that mode. And it gets me a little emotional. So I'm trying to suck back the tears now just to think about it. That God chose me to be in those shoes to be able to break the mode. Um, I remember, speaking of breaking the mode, I remember going to the archery range, and it was right before one of my archery competitions. And I went to the range and I'm just firing, practicing, working on my breathing and my steady and just trying to relieve some tension. And I remember hearing a guy, well, talking to a guy that walked up and he said, I ain't know black people. He didn't use the word black people though. He said, I didn't know black people did this. I was like, yeah. I gave him one of those looks. He goes, well, are you any good? It's like, yeah, guess I'm pretty decent. He said, well, let's see what you got. I'll go first. So he whipped out his big old, I'm not going to mention the name of the bow, but it was a $1,300 bow. And I whipped out my bow that I hunted with, changed my balancer, my weight, and he shot, I shot, he shot, I shot. And then I Robin Hooded one of his arrows and he said, well, shut my, you know, he's cussing up a storm and, you know, all that. You are pretty good, you know, blah, 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 all that. He said, what you going to do about my arrow? I said, I'm going to give you one of mine, which is probably worth twice as much as yours. Here. He said, wow, you are pretty good, man. You just changed my mind about that, about black people. I said, well, if I can do that from shooting a bow out here in the open with nobody else, let me tell you about a man that can change your perspective on your whole life. And I got a chance to pray with him right there at the archery range. He gave his heart to the Lord right there at the archery range. And about a month or two later, during the rut in Ohio, it was like mid-October, right at the beginning of the rut, our church put on a drama. It was called Is Your Name Written There? I was in the drama. And after the drama, he come running up, he grabbed me. It was like, whoa, 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 who are you? He said, you don't remember me? I was like, no way. He said, man, look, I gave my heart to the Lord. I heard about this drama was going on and I wanted to come see. And now I knew I was supposed. He's just like really excited. He's crying. He said, but listen, I wanted to introduce you to my brothers. They were the same, thinking the same way. And I told them to come. And then when I saw you, I pointed you out to them. And they just gave their heart to the Lord tonight. So they were known racist in their community. But they said after their brother talked to them about what happened at the archery range, he said it completely changed their lives. He said, unfortunately, his father didn't live to be able to have that conversion as well, but his mother did. And so now I believe he's a minister now in Chillicothe, Ohio. Now he sends me a message every once in a while, brother, how you doing, brother? We're still going strong. So that right there is just like, all right, Lord.
That gives me chills.
Yeah, even if it was just for that one, it was well worth it. But
Yeah.
yeah.
And that, like I said, that gives me chills. It really, when I have run into people like that, and I've raised my daughter, like, I always tell her, like, you have to wonder what happened to them or, you know, what has preconditioned them to think this way or behave this way, or to act this way. But also, how just that one-on-one, if you can go and, look at your heart and learn how to speak to them, because a lot of times in different leadership trainings, we've talked about, if I put my hand up and push, you're going to push back.
Mhm.
And instead of pushing, if we can just work together, we
Right.
can make something happen. And to me, that's what you did, is instead of, him coming at you the way he did, you could have went, hey, you're a jerk. And it
Mhm.
could have
Mhm.
been very much different, but you were willing to kind of just say, okay, this guy probably needs someone to talk to today, or
Yeah.
who knows what.
WWJD. What would Jesus do?
Yeah, yeah. And that's a great way to look at it.
Yeah.
And how amazing that you guys had that experience through archery,
Yeah.
and then I can't imagine the impacts that you've had with hunting. Are you still taking young hunters out, or
Um,
are you guys doing any outreach with hunting or fishing or anything?
Outreach, yeah, with fishing. Actually, I was talking to a Pat. Like I said, we've only been here 2 years, going on 3. So I really, the last season was my first time hunting here, in North Carolina, and it's kind of disappointing coming from Ohio, but it's okay. It's something I got to get used to. The deer looks like puppy dogs down here, but that's okay. Something I got to get used to. But I was talking with a pastor here about 2 weeks ago, and we're going to try to put some stuff together for a fishing with dad day, here in one of our local ponds, and we're going to try to get as many people to come in and sponsor and help as possible. I did the fishing with dad day. I did it in Ohio, and I ended up mentoring some men that worked for the Columbus Urban League, and so I discipled them, and then they took it over and they just blew it out the water. So I said, what better place to do it than here in the South, where we are, since there's not really nothing here like that. So it's going to be a groundbreaking, type of deal, where we're going to have not just inner city kids, but kids as a whole. And it's going to be a time where they can come and just hang out with dad all day, as long as they can, fishing. We're going to provide the poles, the bait, and working with the North Carolina natural resources here, just to have a place where they can go and not be bothered, not have to worry about buying a license, have some little breakout sessions to teach them how to cast, how to tie knots, how to bait the hook, the different type of fish in the area, because there's a lot of inner city kids that don't know anything but drugs, the projects, shooting a basketball, throwing a football. And my goal is to help them understand there's so much more to life than what you see right there in those few blocks in your neighborhood. Life has so much more to offer. And I think when we did that in Ohio, that it broke a lot of generational curses, a lot of generational poverty, a lot of generational minority mindsets, because it all starts in our mind. If we are conditioned to think one way, that all we can do is, and I'm just not saying this about minorities or African Americans, but anybody. But if we're conditioned as we grow up that the only assistance that we can ever get is from the government, then whoever conditioned us that way have already failed. Um, my goal, especially with our children, is to raise productive citizens, to go out, work hard for what they do, save their money, raise their children, and be the best individuals that they can, but keep God first in all of it. So that's my goal as far as like the fishing with dad day.
That's awesome. And I get so excited about that, because here locally we do like a fishing derby to bring
Ooh.
families, and it's for little kids, and we do that in conjunction with the local Safari Club International chapter. But
Ooh.
even further back, why I got into doing what I do and how I became a mentor for hunting and fishing and firearms was because my parents divorced when I was in high school. And I went to high school and college in San Diego. And coming from a little tiny town in Southwest Colorado and going to the metro area of San Diego, um, you know, right outside my back door, there were wild turkeys. There was, miles and miles of forest and stuff like that. And I went to the city and I was so amazed that the kids that I went to school with, they didn't know like where they could go fishing. They didn't know where they could go hiking, where they could go and look at waterfowl and stuff like that.
Mhm.
And it really just became like a mission of mine. I'm like, there's this lake in San Diego you can go fishing. There's this up in the mountains in the Cuyamacas that, you can go fish in the bay. You can go fish off the pier. And it's just, I know a few people have there that I grew up with, they do enjoy the outdoors and adventures and stuff like that. But it's something that if you grow up in a small community like we did, and I don't know about you, but for me,
Mhm.
I took it for granted, and so
Yeah.
I really am thankful. Not thankful that my parents divorced, but I mean, like everything happens for a reason.
Right.
And
Right.
I know that one of the reasons for me to go to a metro area was to learn to be empathetic.
Mm.
And also, a lot of the commissions and committees that I sit on, I'm able to kind of talk about, well, in Denver Metro, Denver area, there's this. And if you're in the rural area, there's that, and help kind of bridge those ideals so that people can understand one another.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And I think if more people thought on those lines, that it's not just about us, but it's how can you go back and help somebody else become the better version of themselves? If I think more people thought about that, like we do, this whole world would be a different place. Whole world, a
Well,
complete
hopefully there will
different
be
place.
more of us through
Yeah.
the years, the more people you impact, the more chance there is for, that, what do they call
Yeah.
that? The 6 degrees of separation, or, however you affect people and it
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
ripple effect.
I like to call it the butterfly effect.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, the butterfly effect. But yeah, I grew up in Youngstown where it was very, very small, right outside of Cleveland, Ohio. It was so small that the only thing it was known for was the mafia. That where the mafia would come and hide and then leave. That was the only thing that Youngstown was known for. That and steel mills. And growing up, like you said, we took it for granted. I thought everybody, all my friends went hunting and fishing. My grandfather would wake us up, let's go fishing. My dad and my uncles, hey, we're going rabbit hunting today. Okay, we get up in the morning, grab our little Daisy BB guns and march to the woods like we're doing something. But it taught us those things. And, I told, um, who was it? It was a podcast I did years ago called Deer Talk. I think it was. I think it was called Deer Talk years ago. And they asked me pretty much the same question. Why did you get into it? Or no, I had made a statement how hunting saved my life, that I was more focused on being in the woods than I was being on the streets. Um, and they said, well, wow, man, where'd you get that from? I said, I grew up hunting and fishing. That's pretty much all I knew growing up. Go in the woods and play cops and robbers, have BB gun fights. We did all that and we didn't get in trouble. We had fun. We stayed off the streets. So we didn't get in trouble. Our grades weren't always that good, but at least we were going to school. We weren't skipping and anything like that. So yeah, I mean, that small town, but we had fun. And like I said, I think we took it for granted till we got older. And I think I'll be 53 tomorrow. And I think out of all of my cousins, there's only two of us that still fish. And I think I'm the only one that hunts out of all my cousins that grew up doing it. Everybody else walked away. I have a cousin that lives in Illinois and he's trying to go pro. And I told him, I said, clean yourself up. Yeah, that big old mountain mountain man's beard. I said, cuz if you just clean yourself up, taper it up, comb your hair real nice. Other than that, dude, you got the skills it takes to hit the lake with the pro. He is an awesome bass fisherman, and he's come up with his own lures and his own techniques for bass fishing. He's always sending me pictures of 5-pounders, 6-pounders. I'm like, why aren't you doing this for a pro? You can be making money at this. But I just love doing it, cuz. I just love doing it. All right, man. All right. Do what you do then. Do what you do.
You're like, maybe you can make money doing what you love.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. But hey, if you're happy with doing what you do, hey, make it work.
Yeah, exactly.
Make it work, man. Make it work.
And so, I mean, thinking of him possibly going pro, has he expanded on what you guys learned as youngsters? And is there anything he's taught you that you're going to be teaching in your the daddy and son time?
Oh, absolutely. As my son was growing up and I was watching my cousin do this. My cousin's birthday was yesterday and he's like 20 years younger than me. And so, but he's got into the fishing side of it more than me. I got more into the hunting side of it. Um, and it was just some stuff that he taught me. And I'm like, well, mind blown, dude. I'm 30 something years old. You're in your 20s or something. Never noticed it, never looked at it from that perspective. And as my kids and I were growing up, as my kids were growing up and I was taking them fishing, I would teach them little, like the Carolina rig, the Texas rigs and those things, the difference between the watermelon worm and the watermelon uh, crawdad, the little rubber bass fishing thing. Um, teaching my kids those little techniques on how to hook a worm, how to hook a rubber bait and things like that. And now that I have my grandson, he's only 2, but every once in a while I'll get him out there with a little play rod and, get him going. I wanted to buy him a bow, one of the little toy Mickey Mouse bows. And my daughter said, no, not yet, not yet, not yet. But I'm going to sneak it in his hands this Christmas. He turns 3, December 22nd, he turns 3. So this Christmas, he's getting one. I just bought him a Real Tree quad, little 12-volt motorized ones. So I'm starting to instill that in him now, because my kids, all but my daughter, has laid down the hunting. My oldest daughter, she still hunts with me every once in a while. But my son and my middle daughter, they want to fish. So we're going to go out and do some fishing. So they like the fishing side of it, but I still rather be in the woods.
Yeah, yeah. And why do you think they would be more inclined to be fishing rather than hunting, or if they're going to do one rather than another?
I can say for my son, I believe my son had an experience. We went to hunt a ranch, and he had just got out of a cast. He had hurt his foot during a football game. He was younger. I think he was like 10, 11. So he had just got out of his cast. And we went to this ranch in southern Ohio to hunt. Um, and he said he wasn't feeling well, but I didn't listen. I was really excited about him going out to get his first deer. And one of the guy that we went with that was sponsoring us insisted that my son use his grandfather's rifle. And I said, no, I don't think that'd be a good idea. Let my son use his shotgun since he's used to it. He's never shot your gun. Let my son use this. He goes, yeah, but it'd be good for the camera, it'd be good for social media. And I'm thinking, is that the only thing that you're looking at? Or are you looking at the experience? That's how I was feeling. But, it's on his dime. I said, fine, we'll use the rifle. And so when my son had the opportunity to harvest a deer, he took a bad shot. And so I think that after that, I think that left a bad taste in his mouth.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that left a really bad taste in his mouth, because he wounded the animal, but we couldn't find the deer. We couldn't find it. But we got a phone call a couple of days later that the guy that owns the ranch found the deer, put it down, and was able to donate the meat to the homeless shelter. So that made me feel better. But I don't think it helped my son at all. My middle daughter, I think she backed away, and I take full responsibility for that. And I think the reason why she did is because that's when the show was doing well. We were picking up sponsors left and right. And we were doing really well. As a matter of fact, we had just got picked up by a cable network in the SEC network, a cable station in the SEC, which is like Florida, Texas, Florida, Tennessee, Alabama, Georgia, parts of Georgia, parts of Tennessee, those SEC southern states, but eastern side, the southeastern side. And we were out hunting one day, It was a nice day out. And I kept saying, okay, when the deer walks out, take your time. I want to get the shot. I was more worried about the shot than I was spending time with my daughter. And she actually said, Dad, I don't care about the shot. I just want to spend time with my dad. So I realized in that moment that I started losing focus of why I started doing that in the first place, and was worried more about, I got to get the shot. I got to get the shot. Got to get the kill shot. I got to get this. I got to get that. And I think that's what gave her a bad taste in her mouth. So I asked her one day, right before we moved here, I said, "Do you ever think you would go hunt with me again?" She said, "Yeah, once you own your own property, I would go again." So we've been working towards that. We've been working towards it, and because now that we stopped filming for the industry, we just film for our memories now. So I think she would go back.
Yeah, I will say, as a hunting guide, I've had clients that I've taken that are more worried about the picture for social media than they are about the animal or the experience. And we don't guide full time anymore. I help like with nonprofits. I'll help them and guide for them and stuff like that now. But really, that was one of the things that really changed my mind about guiding, was some of these people and their attitudes
Yeah.
about the animal, that they weren't paying any respect or regard to the animal, that they just took, all they wanted was the picture for social media. And it was kind of disgusting. I would say I was disgusted, and I told my husband, I'm like, I've had enough. Like, I don't want to do this anymore.
I can understand that.
Just was
Absolutely.
ridiculous. And so I can't imagine, if you have a TV show, you've got to get some footage.
Yeah. A lot of B-roll, a lot of B-roll, lots of it, lots of a lot of it. But it is, it is doing that, trying to get that extra footage. Like I said, when my daughter said that one day, it helped me understand, okay, I need to rebalance. I need to
Mhm.
refocus. I need to refocus. I really do. So I did. And it was like God was bringing everything together, because when she said that, later on, about a month or two later, is when everything, all the attacks and social media attacks and the face-to-face attacks started happening. They raised the price on being on the cable network to
Mhm.
us, and I'm like, okay, I can't keep doing this. Just lost my mom. My kids are getting older. We're going through this, going through that. I need to dial it back and focus on my family. And
Yeah,
then I
focus
ended up
on those
focusing on this.
priorities.
Yeah. And it was like God was just stripping little things away, because he had me where he wanted me, but he was starting to strip little things away. Now that my focus had shifted back to him and my family, he started stripping those little things away, which I have no complaints at all, because my prayer has always been, Lord, search me, search my heart. If there's anything in there that you don't like or that's not like you, take it out. I don't care how painful it might be, take it out, because I just want to be more like you. And doing that, people still look at me from my past and like, you are really all in. I said, I was all in when I was in the streets, and it left me dead, almost dead, left me in jail, and with no friends or family. Yeah, I'm good. I'm all in on this side, where I can go to bed at night, lay my head down and go to sleep and wake up in peace and not have to worry about any of that no more. But I'm still going hunting and fishing. I'm still going to do that. Matter of fact, I was looking for a truck today. I was like, man, I got to find another truck, because I'm not driving my car in those woods. I'm not doing that. And we have sand here. So the ground and everything is so soft. And it's like, oh, okay, big difference from Ohio. Big difference. The pine trees here, oh my Lord. I had to change. I told my friend up in Ohio, he's a cop, he's a sheriff in Ohio. I used to hunt with him a lot. I think we met at the Deer and Turkey. I think you met him at the Deer and Turkey Expo. He he said, so how's it going down there? I said, bro, none of my tactics in Ohio is working. I'm so depressed about this. He said, what's wrong? I said, I wore my thick stuff in November. So I figured it was going to be cold. I get out to the woods, it's like 78 degrees. I'm like, I'm not killing no deer out here because it was
A
so
little.
hot out. I'm like, this is not happening. So I had to change up my whole attack mode, my whole diagram, my whole mapping system, my whole blueprint. But it's okay though, because a friend of mine and I, a pastor friend of mine in Ohio, he said that we got to stay liquid. I don't know if you watch SWAT or anything like that. He was like, with the spirit, you got to stay liquid, which means you got to stay flexible. Like you were saying, if you're going like this, we're fighting against each other. But when you're coming up with Jesus, you got to stay flexible. You got to. Things just work out better that way. So I told him, I said, me hunting down here, man, I got to stay liquid. He goes, what? I said, I got to stay flexible because I got to put meat in the freezer. I want to get to the point where I can start bringing people with me. Like when I told people here at the church that I hunted, they were like, brother, I've been wanting to hunt for years, but I ain't got nobody to go. Let's go. Why do you hunt? The closer I am, the higher I am. I'm up in that tree, 25 feet off the ground, makes me closer to God. And believe me, I said some of the best messages I ever preached was from my tree stand to myself. He said, bro, I like that, but can't you do the same thing on the ground? I was like, yeah, you can, but being up that high is a lot better for me because it's all peaceful. And then you get the wind blowing you back and forth.
And that scares some people, but some people
Yeah.
it's very calming.
Yeah. And because I remember I posted a video about my dad falling out of a tree. He fell 23 feet out of a tree. And that's when the Will to Hunt and I were doing a campaign on the Eastern Coast about getting as many hunters to wear their safety vests as possible. And I think that within the 2 years that we were adamantly going at it, I think we gave away something like 15,000 harnesses, gave away 15,000 harnesses to hunters, new hunters, older hunters that were experienced, that just didn't wear a harness, but they were like, yeah, I guess you're right. And when I showed the video of my dad after he fell, it changed our minds a lot about tree stand safety, and harness safety. So yeah, that was good times, good times. I miss them a lot, but I know that that was just for a season and that everything I was doing there was to get me to where I am now. And everything I'm doing now is to get me to where I'm going tomorrow or next year,
Yeah. And who knows
I'm
where
still
that
looking
may
forward to
be.
coming out there though. I really am. I really am. I want to come out there so bad. We're actually, when we went to Gallup, New Mexico, I was trying to talk my friends into driving north so we can meet up, and they were like, "We're on a time schedule. We don't have time. We have to get this built and fly back to Ohio." Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you guys were in Gallup, were you doing like missionary stuff there?
There was a church in Gallup that the church sat here, the state park and everything was right behind it, and so they didn't have a fencing around the property, so they had elk, they had all kind of wildlife, wild horses, cattle coming through the property, destroying the property. So they said, can y'all come and put a fence up? Absolutely. New Mexico, I'm on my way. And I thought, wait a minute, my friend is just like an hour drive north.
Right.
Yeah, I was like, maybe. They were
When
like,
I was
no.
trying to think, was I like in Texas then? Because I vaguely remember talking about that because we were supposed to do some work down there for that church too, but it was a different time. But like normally I would have driven down, but I feel like I was out of town or something. As I said, my memory, I don't know. Too many
I don't
things.
remember how. I don't remember why. I know on my side we didn't have time. We had to do what we had to do because we were planning for our next trip to Haiti, and I just don't think the schedules lined up. But I know that you said that you were just at that moment you were just north of where we were, and that was like an hour to drive or something like that.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, cool. But yeah, our schedules just wouldn't allow it. But I told my daughter, I showed her the horses that you and little girl was on. Uh, and she said, whoa, is that Maya? I was like, yeah, that's Maya. She goes, wow, she still looks so young. I'm like, what are you saying?
What are
The
you
granddaughter
saying?
thing. She goes, no, 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 no. Just like, wow. I was like, yeah. She goes, her daughter got so much older. I was like, you know how long it's been, right? Wow. Because my daughter now, she's 20, she'll be 24 in a couple of weeks. And I think she was only like maybe 13, 14.
Hmm.
So maybe like a decade ago. But she was
Yeah,
like, yeah, so when are we going out there to ride the horses? I was like, I don't know. I said, but I'm doing a live Zoom podcast with her. If you want to watch, she said, I got to work. So she's at work right now. So whenever the video gets posted, I'm going to send it to her so she can watch it. But
for
she
sure.
wants
Yeah.
to come out there with me too. I was like, well,
Yeah, and that'd be awesome if you guys came. We still do the horseback rides all the time and still have a bunch of horses, so it'd be
nice.
great.
I seen him. I
Um,
was like, yeah, yeah.
yeah.
That's awesome. I'm so
Yep.
happy for you guys. I am. And to be on the podcast with you tonight, it really touches my heart. I told my wife earlier, we went out to run to the store, run some errands, and I told her, I was like, I'm so nervous about tonight. I was like,
Oh.
every time I thought about it, I got butterflies. She's like, but you got this. This is who you are. You hunt, you preach. This is who you are. I was like, I know, but you don't understand. This is Maya. So it's definitely an honor to be on with you tonight.
Well,
So,
I think it's an honor to have you on visiting with us. And I was thinking, did we also, is there still what was that app, Clubhouse? Did some stuff on there too, didn't we? Like
yeah,
visit.
we did Clubhouse twice that I can remember. Once with your friend, and I think the other one I just hopped in, but I didn't say anything. I just listened. But I
Yeah.
think the other one I chimed in, and you guys were doing. I can't remember who it was, but I know you were on it with a friend of yours. And that's where the idea came up. It was like, we should have you on the show one day. I was like, okay. I don't know if I'm I don't know if I'm at that caliber yet, but okay, we can do
Of
that.
course you are. Well, and the
Yeah.
whole thing is really a lot of what I try to share is, I mean, we're all just people trying to navigate our way through
Yeah.
life. And really, I think it's very helpful to have the Lord guiding you through life rather than just trying to press against what's happening to you in the world. And for so many people right now, I hope that the show is kind of an outlet where they can just have, positive vibes and stuff like that. And also, I feel like listening to your story and how you came to be a pastor, a lot of people, we do a morning Bible study with
Mm,
a few different photographer friends and other media. And a lot of us were like, yeah, in college years and stuff, we were definitely not on a good path. And thankfully the Lord reined us back in and
yeah.
we, figured things out. But society leads people, I mean, and especially the media right now in television and, movies, stuff that's not okay is portrayed as being okay. And that's what youngsters see, they're like, oh, well, everybody's doing this, so I should do this too.
Yeah.
And so hopefully the show and, being mentored in the outdoors can be an outlet to help people find a positive connection with themselves and know that not everyone's perfect and the Lord still loves you. And, something that I've been blessed with this year is letting people know that they do have a greatness inside of them and they can go and touch other people's lives. And I think that
Amen to that.
hopefully through everything and the show and hopefully this episode, people can kind of find that inside themselves.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You said something just now that kind of sparked a memory of a message that I preached not too long ago. I think it was early part of this year, or end of last year. It's called Resistance, Rest, Release, and how we go through life a lot of times and we have a lot of resistance in our lives and we get frustrated with the resistance. But if we can just push on and hold on just a little bit longer, we get that period of rest. Um, and because we are archers, I was equating it to drawing our bow back. There's a resistance there. And it seems like you're pulling your whole life and God is just stretching you to your max. But if we give up, we never understand that right before we give up, there's a rest right there where we can no longer pull the 70 pounds, but we're only holding 20 pounds and God is holding the other 50. But then there comes a moment of release where he releases us into our purpose and into our destiny and to the direction that we're supposed to go. And then when that happens, all that resistance is now understood why we had to go through that. And like you said, going through life during the college years and during that season of our life, we faced, I know I did personally, a lot of resistance from both sides, from family, from friends, from so-called friends. And the book that I wrote called I Am That One talks about all of that. And the book is entitled I Am That One, not being a selfish or look at me or, trying to puff up myself, but saying I am that one he left the 99 for. And it just goes through and it tells my story about the resistance, the rest period that I had, and then the release to be here on this podcast with you tonight, heading in the right direction. And every once in a while, I still get that resistance. And that just means that God's pulling me back a little bit further so he can shoot me just a little bit further. But I'm always looking forward to that moment where we get to rest. Yeah.
I love that analogy. That is awesome.
I like it. And I try to play it over in my head as much as possible, especially when things start getting stressful. I'm like, okay, good. God, I know you're pulling me back. I know you're pulling me back. I know there's a moment of rest. I know you're getting ready to release. But why does it have to be so hard? Be a Matthews, though. Can I be a Hoyt where you can just give me a bigger let off or something? Why has it got to be a recurve? But yeah, I mean, for those that shoot archery, but if you don't know, look it up.
If you don't know,
find me on social media. I'll answer any questions you got. Find me.
Message us and we'll tell you all about that. I thank you so much for joining me on the show. And for the listeners, we will include links in the show notes to social media, to the book. Where can we find the book?
The book is not done yet.
Not done? Oh, dang. Okay, well, we'll keep an eye out for the book.
It's completely done, but I have to go through some legal stuff because a friend of mine that's an attorney said that I should take out some names because I got very detailed in the book. Very detailed. It's not like I was snitching on anybody. I was just sharing my testimony the only way I know how, and that's to be 100% open and transparent. So my attorney and the publisher were the only one that has read the manuscript. And they said, we love the book. It's going to reach a lot of people around the world. But if you don't want to be sued for everything you own, pull this out, pull this out, pull this out. So I'm going back through and reformatting it. So I don't lose my house and my cars and
yeah, we don't want you to lose anything.
Yeah. I want the book to be able to reach as many people as possible without having backlash. So
perfect. Well, we'll keep an eye out for that, and I'll include
hopefully by fall it'll be done, and then it hit Amazon.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. I'll keep an eye out for that. Thank you again so much for joining me on the show. It's really great to visit with you. And when you guys head out this way, make sure you let me know and we'll meet up or come and stay here.
Absolutely. Thank you again for having me tonight.
Hey, this is Lloyd Bailey, the Armed Lutheran, host of the Armed Lutheran Radio podcast, reminding you that the podcast you're listening to is a proud member of the Self-Defense Radio Network. Check out all the great content at selfdefenseradio.net.